It has always been a very good way if you know what you wanted to create for your product that will be used by a lot of people. Welcome to the 1010 Book Club. My name is Billy Chan. Today I'm going to be your host for this book club sharing. We are honored to have Remesh, who is the software valuation manager, and to come here and share about this book, Hook, by Nir Eyal. This book will show you step by step how you could build a habit forming products and get your customer hooked. Without further ado, if you have not yet subscribed to us, click on the subscribe button so that you could get an updated and latest book sharing from us, and you could learn something different every month. Alright, let's hear it from Remesh.
I continue. I just got one question to everybody. Your phone is very distractive. Okay. Have you guys got a rough guess how long, how much time do you check your phone a day?
Put it in the chat box. Yeah, I think put in the chat box.
How often do you check your phone a day? Yeah. 10 times, 10 times. You guys must be not truthful. Okay. Um, here's what most people have said. Okay. Not so much of the wordings, but more of the circles, right? At the end of the day, all I did was a simple browse through your phone, and then these were the numbers that automatically popped up. Okay. About 2018 or 17, 18, there was about a good 52 times a day. Okay. 2017, again, I'm going to give this a wrong number. 2019, it was 96 times a day. 2020, this year, it's about 160 times a day. Now, I'm not going to say looking at your phone or staring at your phone is a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on what exactly you do, because the same people that questions looking at your phone, they also could question how many times you look at your laptop. In our case, we use laptop practically the whole day, right? The whole working hour. So I'm not going to prejudge your phone usage, but depends on what you do. You're going to switch forward. Is it productive? Is it for work purposes and so on? But this is getting to be quite alarming. 106 times a day. That means every 6 minutes or every 5 minutes you open it once. For every ding messaging, you open it once. So that is pretty alarming. Okay. Now, when it comes to this book by Neil, so he wrote basically a book that tells you a bit more about what exactly is hooked about. It's a guide for developers, innovators, people who comes up with products, to be able to give you certain insights on how you should be writing your application, developing your product, so that the goal is naturally economic in nature, whereby it gives you your product is being sold. But more importantly, it tells you how exactly to develop a product that will eventually create a habit, in front of your audience, that allows people to come again to be able to start purchasing or using that particular app or product, whichever you may have. Okay. Now he came up with this book with a very simple model, which I will talk a bit more of, whereby it starts with a trigger, moves on to an action, then you have this variable reward, and followed by an investment. Okay. So Neil wrote this book for a few purposes, like what I mentioned to you just now, as a guideline, right? He wrote it as a guideline so that successful developers could use this as a way of how to develop a product that triggers emotional thoughts in people, that associates their product to the goal that the problem that you have. Okay, because when you have a particular product, you bought a particular product, there was a particular problem that they wanted to solve. So he associates the problem to the particular product that they have. How exactly do you associate it a little better? Okay, and number two, he also mentioned the fact that today's world, um, it's getting a lot more addictive, whereby your phones, for example, is getting, your technology is just getting too invasive, in certain essence, too persuasive. And it's, at the end of the day, it's also pervasive all over the place, right? And it interacts with your daily life so much. And he comes up in this book to also tell you and educate you, you need to be able to start getting control of these habits that he's built, and hopefully they're good habits. How to get control of these habits rather than having these habits eventually then control you, which is the opposite of what exactly we want. Okay. And if you read the book, Neil will tell you how exactly he got involved with this whole process of getting hooked up. How exactly did he come up with these strategies? In his book, he wrote the fact that he started out basically back in, I think, early 2008 or 2010 timeframe, whereby he was working with a group of Stanford MBA students. They were investigating or working with Silicon Valley folks that were looking at how do they embed applications or ads into games, online games. And he was quite intrigued with how exactly these products, these games were actually doing very well. And he was intrigued with how exactly people were buying virtual cows and virtual farms. You remember through your Facebook, right? There was this Farmville, right? He was pretty surprised how these companies actually made quite a bit of money. And he was coming out with this book to be able to associate how to relate these habits that have built up to economical benefits that comes out, to interactions between the users and the PC, and come up with this particular pattern. When he studied all this particular pattern, he noticed that a successful product actually has this pattern in place. This pattern whereby it starts with a trigger and then works its way out to be an action. It has a good rewards that comes along with it, and eventually it triggers an investment. Okay. The good part or bad part about this, all this was engineered by developers. They engineered knowing, excuse me, what exactly your behaviors are, what exactly intrigues you, and starts designing products that will pull you back into the product again. Okay. And actually he realized that a lot of these are trade secrets from various companies. So he wrote a book as a guide for people down the road to be able to start doing this better. Okay. Any questions so far? Let me just pause for a short while. No? Okay, if not, let me just talk a bit more about this book. The book actually has this 4 steps. You'll talk a bit more about these 4 steps, which I will run through real quick. It also has through the fact that some folks have engineered the product to create habits inside of you. It also talks about what exactly this manipulation matrix is about, how exactly one should utilize this manipulation matrix, and how one should utilize this tool to develop your own product for your own usage model. So therefore, if you want to be able to develop product, how exactly to create more habits in people, he tell you these 4 steps so you should be going through so that you also know how to develop these particular 4 steps, which depending on your question, I'll kind of run through with you. So the 4 steps, go ahead.
Quick one, I think action rewards are very self-explanatory. About investment, probably you can touch a bit what the investment kind of it. And there's a question from Bella. She asked that does he talk about the ethical aspect of persuading and manipulating of the tool? Yeah, these two
He
parts.
does he does talk a little bit more about that ethical aspects of it, but eventually the ethical aspects, yeah, I'll touch more about the ethical aspects as we go down the path. But no, this book doesn't guide you about the ethical aspects and what you should be doing. It gives you a high level guide from a manipulation matrix, what as a developer you should be doing and thinking more of from a product perspective. So let me talk about that. So let me go through the trigger first before I come up to the investment, so that you have a good idea what exactly it's about. So a trigger is nothing more than just uh, something that comes in your face. Okay, something that reminds you the fact that, hey, I'm thirsty, boom, I'll drink Coca-Cola. You have to embed things so that people is aware of your particular product. I don't care if you're selling up a new, if you're baking a new cake and you want people to know about you, you have a new app, you want people to know about you, or you're coming up with a new perfume, you want people to know about you. At the end of the day, you need to be able to start up with an external trigger, something that is embedded to catch people's attention. And over time, the goal is not just to have just an external trigger, but the goal is to be able to create an internal emotional trigger that each time there is an internal relation to your particular product itself, it will remind folks that, hey, this is the product that I've always been talking about. So you got to be able to start moving from an external trigger to an internal trigger, which is more emotional in basis. And to get things in people's face, naturally in today's world, we're talking about just advertisements, right? Here you are browsing the web to get some simple, graph theory, but you're thrown up with so much different advertisements from, hey, here's Shopee, here's the new latest and greatest PC, here's the services that you can get for online share brokerage and so on. So all of these things are basically all are paid triggers, so that to get people to know these are the particular products that are coming out, please be aware about it. Okay. But your goal is to be able to get into a thought process. Your goal is to be able to to each time that someone thinks about a particular product, to think about your product. So you got to start building up internal triggers that casually builds up um, notions of your particular product itself. Naturally, the goal of your product is to solve a problem. A particular user has a particular problem and you're trying to solve the problem. By means of solving the problem, you then eliminate whether their pain and build up a special moment so that it associates those internal triggers to your particular product itself. Okay. Uh, the second stage is basically action. You, after you getting the right trigger, the first stage that everybody does is basically the next click, right? When somebody sees you, they either make a purchase or they do a next click. Why exactly do they want to do a next click? And here's the thing about, if your triggers are not good, if the trigger that you have is not good, there wouldn't be any action that they've put in place. Okay. And all of this particular action that comes to mind comes into this behavioral model called the fog model. A fog model is one of the behavioral models that folks will study to make sure whatever that they embed in place will attract you to the particular product itself. They make sure that a particular product has the right motivation to solve your problem. If it has the right motivation, you also will be more keen in terms of using the particular product itself. If the particular product asks too much of you, let's say you buy a particular product, it'll ask you to fill up all of this information in the forms. You are not going to even do that particular effort itself. So the ability, if somebody asks you too much work from you, you are also not going to bother about that particular product itself. So a particular product that has the right level of motivation and then the good level of ability, these are the ones that will have a good substantial number of behavioral trigger that comes back associated with it. So it's a pretty important model for you to remember. Any particular person that wants to have your product itself, got to have the right motivation and got to have the right ability. The harder your ability in your product, the more difficult you make it for people, the less likely they're going to be able to go into your product and click on it. Now, the third thing they talk about is basically the rewards. Okay, the rewards basically comes whenever Neil talks about it, it comes in three different fashions. Whether the reward, whereby the reward of the tribe, where he call it the reward of the tribe, whereby when you get a particular product and use it, for example, online gaming, hey, you managed to play this game and you're reaching this level 10, for example. By reaching this level 10, you are part of this more elite group of people. So this feeling you're part of the gang, you're part of the tribe, that is the feeling of content that people would get coming out of just plain rewards. Or the feeling of basically, it's a feeling of the hunt, whereby when somebody goes through a reward process, if a fisherman goes through catching a fish, it's not just the catching of the fish, which is important. For example, he goes to catch a swordfish, right? It's the process of him getting up early in the morning, him getting prepared, him casting the hook on that big boat itself, pulling and dragging the bait through the whole line, eventually gets a cast, and it's that whole adrenaline rush of pulling in that particular fish when the fish is hooked inside. That is about the hunt. That motivation itself is also very important motivation to pull people into that particular product itself. And last but not least is also about the self. Sometimes, rewards comes in many different fashions. And sometimes it's about, hey, I want to accomplish something, and I did go about accomplishing something. And that is about self-pride and so on. Also, what do you get for yourself? Now, everybody has this little quirky things that you do. I do Rubik's cube, and to me, by me solving Rubik's cube, it's just a self pride that, hey, I could solve this Rubik's cube. And over time, I've had like different versions of Rubik's cubes. Whenever I go to people's house, I see a Rubik's cube, I will tend to solve it. I've got Rubik's cubes with by fours, by fives. Don't ask me why. It's just for the for just for the self hunt. I like doing it, and just part of the whole thing. Okay, now in your particular product itself, when you start embedding rewards, it's pretty important the fact that when you start building up rewards, you got to have rewards which are different and new all the time. Okay, if you are going to be embedding a product and you find that the product has no novelty, there will be lesser and lesser people attracted to your particular product over time. Now, I give, for example, Farmville. I talked about it earlier. So Farmville was invented by Zenga. It was embedded nicely into Facebook, and everybody is using it. I think that company itself introduced it at about 29, right? At about 2010, they already made about $36 million thanks to people just buying levels. You go to a different level, you can right now plant corns and bigger farms and plant a whole bunch of other stuff. Or you can even start buying in more cows and so on. So these things are the things that people buy, and this company earn about $36 million. So at about 2012, this particular company is starting to earn worth about $10 billion at about March of 2012. Okay. And then the company thought about, hey, I know I got to start expanding myself into different areas to start to grow the company. If this one can give me 10B, what about others? So they went into taking this whole Farmville and made it so many other villes. There's a Cityville and the Foodville and a couple of other ones that are out there. But soon users found out that, hey, they were doing nothing more than just the same, taking the Farmville concept and applying it across multiple things. People felt like, hey, there's no novelty in this particular product. By November the same year, 2012, the stocks just crashed by 80%. Okay, So novelty in a product is pretty important, especially novelty in a particular reward is also pretty important. People want to see the newness in that particular product itself also. Okay. Then eventually comes the thing of investment. Now, investment is basically all these teasers that you have, the trigger teaser that was down there to be able to build from internal to emotional trigger, to be able to start ensuring that's the right level of action that was done for yourself, to be able to start getting in, making sure you have the right level of motivation, making sure you have the simple ability for you to get it done. That also builds up perceived value. Okay, the users itself, you will start seeing an increased value thanks to the frequency behavior of you using it. The more you utilize the product itself, the more you find out that, hey, this particular product is actually good for me. You perceive this product to be useful for yourself, and therefore you start associating and building more usage of this particular product itself. I'm going to run through next, instead of talking too much about this particular product, I'm going to run through one simple app with you guys. And this simple app is called, how could I hide this particular, yeah, forget it. Yeah, this particular app encourages people to do jogging, okay, or to do exercise. And you know how people just love exercise, right? And here's a little app, and I'm going to just play this little video of this app itself. Then we'll walk through this particular steps, and you will notice how exactly this particular company created all these triggers and all this process in their simple app. Okay, it opens up a browser. Hang on real quick.
I will let you know when I hear it.
Okay, hang on a second. Wait, when you plays out. You said
Want more motivation to exercise? Get drunk on motivation with My Virtual Mission. Here's how. Start by plotting a long-distance mission onto our easy-to-use map. Missions can be anything you want, such as cycling across the U.S., swimming the English Channel, rowing the Tasman, or traversing a country on foot. Then, go churn out some miles on your feet, your bike, a rower, in the pool, whatever you like. After each session, enter the distance you've exercised into your mission page or phone app, and your progress along your mission path will update instantly. Feel the motivation surge through your veins as you inch closer and closer to your next landmark or town. See it with your own eyes on Google Street View. If you want, you can collect sponsorships along the way for your favorite charity or even your own fundraising cause, be it a sports team, school group, or any other organization. Whether you're training for a marathon, shedding a few pounds, or simply need the motivation to exercise regularly, you're far more likely to stick with your exercise plan if you and the whole world can actually see and measure your progress. It's not exercise anymore. It's a mission, and you'll soon be obsessed. Did we mention that it's free? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single click. Start your mission today at My Virtual Mission.
okay. So this is a very simple app. Product. It's nothing more than just an app, a fitness app. Now, the interesting part about the app is basically it does all the different forms.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Killen. I have my own
Oops.
medical practice, and I've been using Doodly now for a few weeks to create these really.
Okay, so it solves the 4 stages on the particular product itself. Number 1, it triggers. Now the trigger, as I talked to you about, you have to embed this trigger. You know, of course, he does it on online advertisements so that people is aware what exactly this particular product is all about. But the important part is basically he's trying to solve your particular problem. Your problem was at the end of the day, and in most cases, everybody just loves jogging. He made jogging more interesting. Okay, he made sure everybody would want to be able to start jogging anywhere in the world, right? Let's say that you want to jog between I don't have an example, but I should have put up an example over here. If you want to jog along Pacific Coast Highway 101, Highway 101 in the US is listed out as one of the most scenic and beautiful places. You want to jog all the way from San Francisco over to LA, right? And you set that as your target, but every day in the evening, you go just take a walk, or you take a bike, or if you want to jog, you can go ahead and jog. And in the evening, you clock in your miles. And you can then see where exactly you are in street view. It's like, wow, it'll show you the scenery out of Google view. Where exactly have you started to move? So you see, it allowed you to be able to turn from something that is boring into something that is more interesting, whereby now you get to run or get to jog in a place that is new. Or of course, I'm talking about Pacific Highway 101. It could be anywhere, right? You could do the run between East Coast US to the West Coast US. You want to take a look at the jog by the River Nile. You want to run on, I'm not too sure whether you can do Great Wall, but maybe it could from a Google view perspective itself. You could enable all of this and you can start seeing how many miles you made per day. Okay, no need for you to fly to that particular place. And it keeps you motivated because at the end of the day, you can have a street view of how far you've made it. Okay, so a perfect trigger. It enabled your ability, and it was quite easy. Ability wise, key in a few distance and you get to see where exactly you are. Ability is easy. Investment, by the way, they told you it was free, at least free just to get you engaged. But over time, there's actually a monthly fees associated with it. But eventually, it got you involved. Okay, so that's the basic idea between this whole trigger process itself. So I'm going to open it up to Billy and on terms of any other questions that you guys may have.
Nope. Yeah. Thanks, Ramesh.
Okay. If not, I'm going to just follow through on the question just now of investment, and someone was saying, hey, you know what, was there any process whereby he talked about manipulating? Is it bad? Is there an ethics or whereby somebody shouldn't be manipulating someone's habits or creating a habit in somebody? Well, the answer is no. He doesn't talk too much about that, but he did a matrix that he was hoping that everybody that is going to be creating a particular product run through the simple thought process as you are creating this particular product. You should ask yourself a few questions. The question is not, can I create a product? Sometimes the question is more, should I be creating a product itself? I should be asking the question of, am I making this particular product like a peddler? He comes up with this small little matrix as I'm showing over here. This matrix is basically a simple matrix of that shows, are you a person who sits down and creates a product to improve someone's lives, or it doesn't improve someone's life? Are you the maker that use it, or the maker that do not use it? So a peddler, somebody who just push off drugs, naturally he will see goodness in the product itself, because the thing is, he basically want to particularly use the product itself. He wants to make the money out of it, and he doesn't typically use it himself. A dealer deals, like he probably exploit the products a bit more, but typically they don't use the product itself. An entertainer, well, with all these advertisements and so on, it's pretty captivating the way they deal it, but eventually the maker also doesn't maybe uses some pieces of it, but he doesn't quite utilize it too much. Now where Neil kind of want people to do is to focus on being a facilitator of the product itself, whereby you should be a person who not just not just make product itself, but truly in trying to improve someone's life. You're trying to sit down and also make it a useful product, see that it's improving. You're a person that know what is the weakness behind the product itself and continuously improve the particular product itself. So he tries to get everybody into that facilitator matrix, whereby you're not any part of this other group of people itself. And he basically came up to help products owners to figure out, whether they should attempt this particular product or not. Okay, and most importantly, it should be improving the lives of folks. Okay, Billy, any questions now, Billy? Since I talked about this whole manipulation again, and this whole manipulation metrics, technology, I was saying, is very pervasive and persuasive, but no, there is no ethical code of conduct. There is no book that tells you got to be certified with all of this. You're not manipulating people. You're not engineering a habit in people. There's no such a code of conduct. But it's basically you and this matrix to figure out what is the rightful thing that you should be doing.
Hey, Ramesh, do you want to go until the end of your presentation and take question or?
No, we can do it anytime right now.
There's one question from Lee. Said that which is the main trigger, whether create the needs versus remove the pain in creating a product. From Lego. This is from Lego.
You got to be able to. You see, in part of this book itself, they'll talk to you about. They'll talk to you about vitamins versus, if I'm not mistaken, is vitamins versus painkillers. What is your product trying to do? Eventually, as a business owner, you want to be able to solve people's pain. You're not here to go and sell vitamins. Vitamins is good. It keeps people healthy down the road. It's a perceived value. But eventually, from a business perspective, you are here to solve people's pain. If people need a motivation just now, for example, the virtual journey you saw just now, the goal was basically for you to reduce and make it easier for people to jog. That was the problem. You solved that particular problem so that to get people more engaged and motivated. Facebook is supposed to connect people, right? And you will see goodness in terms of other products whereby it's also, not putting up false news. Twitter, for example, whenever there's too much of a false news, they start filtering it off. So you see goodness in some products which are out there, but it's hard to say, is it good or bad. In part of the Neil's book, he also talks about Instagram and a particular one of the example of people that they found out that people were using Instagram, keep snapping photos all over the places and just sharing it to a lot of people, right? They were associating this with a thing called the fear of missing out. I go to this particular place, I must snap this picture to share with everybody else. I must be the first person out there to be able to share this thing. I cannot be the second, I cannot be the third, I got to be the first person to share this thing out. If I don't do that, I am missing out on something. And he talks about how people are a bit bored, maybe lonely and frustrated sometimes, and they use this as means to be able to start solving their particular problem and so on also. So I don't know. It's look at it from a goodness perspective. That's the right way to view it.
Hey, Ramesh, I have a follow-up question on this one, right? It's a very good concept when you mention about we need to be the facilitator of that particular product. The Nir mentioned about two from here, like I think the first one is to start a particular product and then we cultivate it to become mature. And
Right.
is that a process or a guideline or system that is being used that we can slowly grow this product to be useful product for the society?
Yeah, at the end of the day, don't get this whole thing wrong. Habit is good for business. I can let me talk about uh, let me share this one particular joke uh, that I just received uh, yesterday. Okay, that was shared among WhatsApp folks. Okay, um, cycling is bad for the economy. Now, if you read it yourself, it's quite hilarious and so on. So, a cyclist is a disaster for the economy. He does not buy a car. He does not take a car loan. Doesn't buy insurance. Does not buy fuel. He doesn't send his car for servicing. He does not pay for parking, and he does not become obese. Well, these healthy people are not needed for economy. They do not buy drugs. They do not go to hospital. They do not nothing to the GDP. And contrary, for every fast food restaurant right now, every fast food restaurant creates about 30 jobs, about 10 cardiologists, 10 dentists, 10 weight loss people. At the end of the day, hey, a cyclist versus a KFC, what would you choose? And by the way, they also say, hey, walking is worse. They don't even buy a bicycle. So habit is important eventually to be able to start creating economy and making sure there's economy moves. I do not like the fact that it's manipulated to catch people into creating a habit. That part is a bit more wrong. But yeah, it's a balance between using the strategy in the right way so that you don't manipulate some people in many ways. Billy, any other questions?
Yep. I saw that you have one more slides to go. Ramesh, why not you wrap up whatever
No,
that you want?
I'm practically
Done?
open up to questions
Okay.
and so on, right?
Yeah. To everyone, I think we have 63 people in there. Let's spend another 15 minutes to get questions that you have. And Ramesh will try to share his experience from the book. And let me start with one, Ramesh.
Please.
If your slide is done, you can unshare that so people can see you much more wider screen. And we talk about hope, and you always talk about how the digital world have been nominating our life.
Right.
So can we as a consumer unhook ourselves, or what is your own experience, or what the author mentioned about, can we unhook ourselves from getting into all this trouble?
He didn't mention too much about getting unhooked. At the end of the day, the goal of this whole product itself to get you hooked into the particular product itself. He does came up with the manipulation matrix itself just to figure it out. As long as you are doing it for the greater good, whereby you want to have this, you don't want to be the peddler, nor you don't want to be the dealer. You want to be able to come up with a facilitator to be able to continuously improve the particular product for its good. That's about what exactly it says about it. It's also important to note that one of the studies that Neil did in his write up, he wrote about this group of people in University of Missouri, whereby they did a particular survey with 216, I think, ish undergraduate students, just to be able to start probing their internet usage. Okay, so after about 1 year of probing these volunteers' internet usage, they then compare their internet usage with people who have went into the health services of that university that are rated to have some form of depression. Okay, and then he realized that there's a correlation between these people who have went through this survey and these folks that have depression. And he realized the fact that hey, anybody who's more depressed tend to have a higher internet usage, where be it emails, be it blogs and write up and so on. He found out that a good number of people which are a bit more depressed are going to the internet. Now, not to say that's right or wrong, okay. Eventually they found out that the study was it is a good thing, yet too much of it is also bad. Good thing in the sense that people were turning to technology to lift their moods. They were looking as alternative ways for them to go get away from the stresses of everyday lives, to be able to start having a means of channeling their stresses of the day through that particular angle, right? So those people who have high internet usages, from a student's perspective, yeah, they were showing depressive type nature, but it's to get away from the daily stresses. But of course, in the same note, there was also people that actually are doing way too much of it. I'm pretty sure you've heard of online gamers that have played on the PC the whole time around, and that's particular a real bad end of it. And the bad portion of it, you were actually developing a product to create that habit, and that habit actually causes the person to be on the PC all the time. So that's good and bad to that whole different scenario. So yeah, hopefully I answered that particular question.
Yep. Thanks, Ramesh. And question from Eddie, much more related to your own personal answer is that I believe the question is what makes you pick up the book and how do you stumble upon this book recommendation?
Okay. Well, to me, this book, if this book had a longer title, like model something something to build up a product, I probably would not have picked up the book. It was simply because the title just intrigued me. Okay, it's just as simple as hooked. I can relate it same way to this whole model that they came up with. Okay, you got to have the right trigger. You got to have the right action. So what triggered me was, hey, hooked. What exactly was it? Now, it sounded interesting. I open up the pages. Good. I'm sorry. Although I'm a reader, but I do not like all these small words, right? It's got to be the right size. Too many pages and so on is pretty bad. And the action was just perfect. As far as it was written very well. It was written very well, very simple examples. And then before I made the investment, I opened up recommendations. Naturally, opened up recommendations. A good number of people recommended the book itself. And because I'm a developer myself, hey, this is the things that you should be going through to identify and correlate what you should be embedding in your product to get more attraction of people to your product itself. So it's a good investment that I could do to get more knowledge down the road. So that was my whole story of this, how this particular book itself kind of like triggered me to be able to start purchasing this book itself. But it did start out, but the word itself got me, captured my attention, intrigued me, and I went on to read the particular book itself and found out it was a pretty good book. Anybody that is in this line of creating a product itself should read and know the basic philosophies, the basic material to be able to start gathering and creating more habit-forming product.
That is a very interesting answer from you, Ramesh. And while saying so, there's I think much more like an video recommendation about the social dilemma on Netflix. Seems to be same. What is your thought on social dilemma and how you connect if you watched it before?
Social dilemma, Netflix. I'm sorry, I'm
Probably
not.
for how who bring it up or Bella.
Yeah, no, I'm not a Netflix person. I don't. I know my kids watch way too much Netflix. I've got a concern regarding it, but no, I don't want to don't want to say everybody that watches too much of Netflix is bad. So it's what you
It's
learn
actually a
out of it is more
documentary,
important.
that one, and it actually talk a lot about like how people get hooked or get addicted to all these media and all the social networks and so on. It was quite a interesting documentary because it say basically there's no escape for human because you got all these people to study how to get people get hooked, and there's just no way for us to get out. So I thought it was kind of interesting to find some parallels on what you talk about hook and also what is covered in this documentary.
Right.
Hey Ramesh, there's an thanks Hao for chipping in your the recommendation for those interested. Watch that the social dilemma. Ramesh, this is another good question from Gimbun. He asked about does the book have any advice on creating a product just for yourself? Quote healthy habit. Yeah.
Besides that manipulation matrix itself, no, it talks about at the end of the day for you, it talks more about if you want to test your product. So in other words, continuously running through that 4 steps, making sure a good iterative process is being developed in your product itself to make sure eventually you get to creating a product that eventually people will use more and more of it, right? But it doesn't tell you about, creating one for yourself, what exactly you should be doing. It talks a lot about how for you to capture more and more people, you should be able to embedding lesser and lesser effort for people to start using the particular. If you notice internet usages, if you are a blogger, you have to write an article and read articles. It's taking too much time. Facebook, you can just browse through Facebook really fast, right? But sometimes you got to give comments. I don't want to give comments. It's too much time. If you take a look at it, things which are a bit easier, Instagram, everybody just post pictures and you post pictures so fast to be able to start. So the ability to create, ability to give content is pretty important. But it doesn't talk about, oneself and how to build up oneself for you to go it right, other than that little manipulation metrics that it had.
Given I want to add a few things here to add value to you all, is that back in April, I believe, Ban and Wenshin shared about the atomic habit. So the atomic habit does have guidelines and what you can do to get the clarity about your personal goal and objective. I think that is a worth exploring. We also have it in our 1010 book club. We have these grab and go books in PG12. Right now it's a bit hard, but there's a book there. You can check it out for free. Okay. So Ramesh, let us take one more question.
Please.
One or two more questions from the thing, and then we wrap this up for today. Yep, open up. Anyone have question? You can unmute yourself or you can type in the chat box.
Hey, Billy, this is Ben here.
Yeah, Ben. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, folks. Ramesh, I have a question for you. After skimming and scanning through the details that you have presented, first and foremost, thank you for the presentation. It was very insightful. I see that this book is more tapping into the darkness of human nature, where we like to move towards bad habits, per se, and it banks on short-term impact. Like you gave an example on farm wheel and so forth. So once this is like launched, everyone jumps onto the bandwagon and then it slowly starts fizzling down. So I do not see a sustainable long-term usage for this. So what do you think on that? So it's like a hook. It's kind of when you have the uproar, everyone jumps onto the bandwagon, ha-hoo, and then it starts fizzling down.
Yeah, it's a balance of novelty versus something new that needs to be balanced. It's hard to say. If you go back to the very basic, what you are used to, I think Billy went and posted up the simple question of Google search versus Bing. Google left its browser the way it is. They didn't create anything which is new. They just left it the way it is. And they know the more they create, maybe people might start walking away from it also. It's a good differentiation between it and also Bing. Bing, on the other hand, I don't think it's really that bad as of a browser. It It may take you additional clicks to eventually get you to the information that Google could, but nothing wrong with Bing. You know, going back to Farmville, it doesn't mean that you have to change all the time. It depends on the particular product that you're using, and is it serve the purpose? Is it good enough? Uber, I think Neil also talks about Uber. Look, Uber, you want to go from point A to point B. Great. It tells me when I book a cab, it takes me about, it tells me whether it's 10 minutes away, 5 minutes away, where exactly this person is. It'll tell you how bad the traffic is. It'll tell you, good enough, done. Need there be more novelty to it? No. I think as long as it solves that particular problem, I think that's the most important thing, that it's good enough. The bad part about this is basically when you start to form habits in front of people that are just beyond. And don't get me the whole wrong. Forming a habit, there's a good habit and there's a bad habit. As long as it's done right, it's good. If it's on the dark side of things, then this is where the poor side of human nature gets to come up.
Alright, this is what we have for this month. I hope that you enjoyed the video, you learned something new today, and remember that we need to everyday grow ourselves. It is about continuous learning. Do subscribe to us so that you can get much and much more future videos that you are going to learn something different. See you again, and bye bye.